No more messing around, today's the day. I've been hinting at needing to fix this PC for over 8 months at this point, so let's get to it. Today, we're deep diving into a very frustrating situation I've been having with this workstation. That is before I shelved this PC at the start of this year, and that is persistent blue screens. This thing has been properly broken now for the better part of a year, and it's just such a waste to have it sitting around collecting dust. Plus, some of these parts are still under warranty, which is gonna run out in the next month or two. So no more putting it off. Today's the day we tear this thing apart and get it back up and running. So just a bit of background on this thing. This is my old workstation. I say old in air quotes because the specs of the system are still very high end even by today's standards. And we'll go over what those specs are exactly in a second. But yeah, I was using this PC from early 2021 right up until the 13900K was announced, which saying that out loud sounds kind of horrible, especially considering, you spend a lot of money on a PC like this, you would hope to get more than 1.5 to 2 years out of it. This is my first PC where I chose AMD over Intel for the main platform. I've always enjoyed the stability and the polish of an Intel system, all the way back to my very first PC I built, which I think was a Core 2 quad. But when the 5950X came out, I was like, dang, that's a lot of cores and threads. And the performance of the 5950X also arguably beat out Intel's offering at the time for gaming, so it was kind of a no-brainer. Get the most cores, most threads, most performance, bing, bang, boom. We built this thing. So going over the specs of this thing, of course, we have the 5950X CPU, the Asus Dark Hero motherboard X570. This is a super nice board. 64 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance RGB DDR4 RAM, 3600 megahertz, an EVGA RTX 3090 XT3 hybrid. So this originally came with its own AIO water cooler. Of course, we removed that. We put the EK water blocks block on it and their backplate. Hey, I just noticed I'm also wearing my EVGA shirt. How fitting. In the back powering this whole thing, we have the Asus Thor 1200 watt platinum rated power supply. This is the original Thor, not the new super fancy cool looking P2 that launched recently. There's two 1 terabyte Samsung 980 Pro NVMe drives in here, and that's all built into the Lee & Lee 011 Dynamic XL ROG Edition case. And of course, the hardline water cooling system, which started off as a pre-bundled Corsair kit with their res and water block, and I think one 360mm rad. Of course, came with its own fittings and stuff as well. I ended up not using the tubing and the fittings that came with the Corsair kit because I wanted to go to a thicker 16mm diameter tubing to fill up the space a little more. And I also ended up using these freeze mod compression fittings and adding a second Corsair 360mm rad because we got one in the top and then we got one in the back over here. Unfortunately, the consistent hiccups I had with the system over the better part of the 2 years it was in service has led me to go back to Team Blue, going into that 13900K for the current system I'm using now. My hope is that by going back to Intel, I'll find the stability I need in a workstation. It's one thing for a gaming PC to crash out or have weird bugs like your mouse stops working, you have USB controller issues or something, but it just hits completely different when you got deadlines and you have people relying on you to get projects done and your PC is just preventing you from doing that. So I've removed the panels obviously right off the hop just because the glass tends to glare. But our first step is actually going to be to fire this thing up and just verify that we still actually have a problem. So just give me 1 sec to plug it all in. I'm confident we will still have a problem because when I finally shelved this thing, it was blue screening every 2 to 5 minutes. But let's go ahead and see if it turns on. I fully expect it to, just because turning on was not the issue originally. And okay, so a couple things I see right off the hop. We got this fan up here. Okay, the fact that they're not spinning, that's normal. I have 0 RPM set on these fans on the radiators if the CPU temp is below a certain threshold. So if the coolant temperature is at like 35C or something or below, the fans don't spin because they don't need to. But yeah, this RGB on this fan is definitely messed up and these two fans aren't even on. And those 100% worked when I put it away. So that was an issue I wasn't expecting to have to try to figure out. Yeah, it looks like it's already frozen. The problem still probably exists. Let me just try to reboot. And it looks like we're frozen in the same place again. So now that we can indeed see we definitely still have a problem with this guy, we'll have to dig in. Unfortunately, I've already tried all the less invasive fixes, such as trying only 1 stick of RAM, trying 2 sticks of RAM, trying completely different RAM, clearing CMOS, updating the BIOS, reinstalling the OS. I've tried to use a completely different NVMe drive and a completely different OS, still doesn't work. So basically, we're stuck with having to go a little more invasive on this one. And it's about this time that I'm reminded about why I should probably never hardline another production system again. What I mean by that is like a system I actually need to be reliable and do work for me. Because now to replace either the motherboard or the CPU, which are some of the only components left at this point that I haven't actually tried swapping out, it means draining the entire loop. And that can mean a mess, and it means time. It's very time consuming. So in the future, I think it definitely makes a lot of sense to use quick disconnect fittings or soft line tubing for a more workstation or a professional production type of system. So definitely we won't be making this mistake again. Let's make some room and get ready to open this thing up and drain the system. So I want to drain it here. I wasn't smart and I didn't put a drain port in here, but I want to drain it from here. So what I'm going to try to do is just lay this thing down on its back, unscrew this port, then find a fitting for there, a little piece of soft tubing, and then hopefully just flip it up into this dish here. Perfect. And the reason why nothing's coming out, I think, is just because it's airlocked. So once I go ahead and remove this top part here, it should come flying out. So now that that first initial drain is done, I'll show you a little trick to get the rest out. So luckily this tube drained out. So I'm just gonna go ahead and undo the compression fitting up here at the top. Wiggle that guy out. Okay, find a piece of scrap that's the same size. And then we're gonna use, actually, I'd be smart to completely remove this fitting and block it off before I do anything else. So now I've blocked off everything except for the loop is open here and here. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to gently just bump some air down this port here and hopefully drain the rest of the system. So I think that's about as much coolant as we're gonna get out using that method. I think I might just actually take this thing outside quickly and just give it a general quick blow off because it is really dusty, and as I was just pulling the blower away from blowing air in that pipe, I got some dust shooting off everywhere, so I'll be right back. All right, now that we got this thing all blown off and it's 90% cleaner, let's remove these two tubes for the CPU block because, I don't know, we'll try putting a different CPU in it first because that's probably the, on second thought, yeah, let's just take this whole motherboard right out and see if we can emulate the problem with it just sitting on a test bench. Got the GPU out. Block's looking a little crusty for sure. There's a motherboard standoff screw under this top N.2 heatsink. So I guess I gotta pull that out to get the motherboard out. So now with the board fully out, we can go ahead and test this again just to make sure that the conditions still exist where it freezes for no reason. Now I'm gonna swap out this Corsair custom loop block with a air cooler temporarily because I'm not gonna bother plumbing like a whole temporary external loop here. It will be interesting to see what type of thermal paste I use and also how the application was because I honestly don't remember. I guess flipping the CPU block upside down probably wasn't a great idea. And it looks like I used the stock pre-applied thermal paste. So I was pretty happy with it. So obviously it's pretty okay stuff. And here we can see the spread on the CPU. Nice and even. Maybe not a ton of contact along the bottom and top edge. It's a really thin spread. Thermal paste still feels like paste. It hasn't gone chalky or anything, so I guess the pre-applied stuff's pretty good. Remember this pre-applied paste that came on the Corsair Hydro X block, or whatever it's called, the CPU block, at this point is probably close to 3 years old, so pretty good. All right, that can sit on there temporarily. Should we hook up the RGB? Why not? Header for it right there. There we go. I guess the smart thing to do too would be use a stand-in-place GPU instead of this water-blocked 3090. Okay, I found a GTX 1660. We got an old Rosewell 1200 watt power supply here. So let's see if our condition still exists. I just realized that I've kind of already changed up the condition, right? We got a different GPU and a different power supply. So let's just see if we get the same problem. Okay, let's see what we get. Okay, so it appears that we're loaded in now. I don't know if I like that. Now we're booted in with the 3090 again. Don't really know how long we can run this without cooling. So now it's booted in with the 3090 and it's working. So I was just pondering this for a second. Before, when I used to use it, it would crash after like 2 to 5 minutes. Now I can't put this under any load with the GPU sitting here without any cooling on it. I can already feel it starting to warm up. But I'm wondering if I actually put this all back into the case, hook the custom loop back up, fill it with distilled water just in case I have to drain it again. But I'm almost wondering if it's an IQ issue or something to do with the Corsair RGB controller hubs or something that was causing some sort of crashing, because it seemed to freeze when it was trying to load into Windows. I wish I could remember what the blue screen was for this thing. I wonder if I have any pictures. So I'm gonna check in on all that, and I'll probably put this loop back together, and I won't hook up any of the USB devices, and we'll see if we can get it to boot in like this. Now it occurred to me, if I'm gonna reassemble this block back on there, if by some chance it ends up being a problem with the IQ controllers or something causing that freezing issue, then I won't have to take this block off again. So I might as well do the preventative maintenance now and clean the micro fins and the inside of this block, just so I don't have to take it back off again later. Definitely a little bit of schmoo in there. Okay, so just a quick update. I went ahead and speed run the loop back together. I'm gonna fill it with distilled just for testing purposes and also to flush out some of this old red coolant. I guess we'll see what we get. It's been about 2 hours since I first took this all apart, because I disassembled and cleaned the GPU block completely, same with the CPU block. So yeah, it's been a bit of a process, but I don't know, let's fill it up and see what we get. Let's see if this thing boots into Windows now. Remember, the only thing that's different is I don't have the IQ hubs plugged in. The USB ports down here at the bottom, you can see they're just loose. And one other thing that's interesting is, remember this top fan was having a stroke? It seems okay now. Oh. Just rebooted randomly. So I should have known better. I knew it couldn't just be as easy as those USB controllers. I've had twice now where it just goes black screen and then restarts, and currently right now it's just completely frozen. If I hadn't already reinstalled the operating system and had problems, I might consider doing that again. You know what? I'm gonna try to reinstall Windows, just because that's the next easiest thing to do, and go from there. If that doesn't fix it, I'll swap out maybe the CPU. Okay, so we just locked up, just trying to make some room here to install Windows, and yeah, the system has completely locked up. I think it's time to swap out the CPU. So before doing anything too crazy, I decided to clear the CMOS, so totally reset the BIOS, and then I'm gonna try to reinstall Windows again. So it's been like 10 minutes, We've been getting files ready for installation at 3% the entire time, so I'm safe to say this thing is stuck again. I did happen to go and find in my pile of things a Ryzen 5 2600. This is going to be the most overkill cooling setup for a Ryzen 5 2600, but it will be a good placeholder to just see if things get working. I really hope it's not the motherboard. Just that would involve me tearing the entire thing back apart. I don't know. Let's get this in there and see what it does. I absolutely hate when the chips come out like this. Unfortunately, with this cooler, you can't really twist it to remove it because there's the metal pegs that come through the board. So I was just wiggling it gently and that's how it came off. Okay, Ryzen 5 2600 is in there, and well, I guess we'll just fill it up. Okay, so with the Ryzen 5 2600X running in here, as you can see, it's running perfectly fine. I'm just running some TimeSpy Extreme right now just to kind of triple check everything, but I've already fully installed Windows, installed all the chipset drivers, installed, done any updates. I've installed iQ, Samsung Magician for the NVMe. I think if we were gonna have a problem, we would see it by now. So the only other question basically is now, this is the 5950X that was in the system crashing. I wanna put this into a different board and see if it misbehaves in a different system, because that really would be the final nail in the casket that tells me that this 100% is the problem. Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of afraid because this is a 5950X and this is a 2600, that this is like a lower core count, lower powered CPU. So if there was a fault like with the motherboard power delivery or something, but anyways, I just want to double, triple check that this chip is bad in a different system, and then I can start the RMA process on this chip. And for our final trick, we have the 5950X now installed in this B350 board. So just a basic graphics card that doesn't require any external power, it's just powering from the slot. We have an NVMe drive in here. We're gonna try to install Windows, just like we did before, how it locked up. I think this board is on a late enough BIOS that this chip will work in it. I'm not 100% sure though, so bear with me. Okay, interesting. So it did the initial install off of the USB stick for Windows, and then it went to reboot, and now it should be trying to like boot into the rest of the installer. And we appear just to be hung up on this BIOS splash screen here. Been here for about 2 minutes now. I think I'm gonna help it along. I'm gonna reboot it. That's good because the only thing I've changed with the system, and this is a good working system, is I've put that 5950X CPU in it. I would like one more confirmation. I would like it to hang up or something to go wrong, or blue screen or something one more time. That would give me my like full confirmation that for sure there's definitely an issue with this machine now where there wasn't before. And there we go. There's a blue screen. So this CPU is just no good. Just kick the bucket. I believe that blue screen said K mode, exception not handled. Now it's saying unexpected kernel mode trap. So it looks like this CPU is just kicked the bucket. All right, 5950X CPU is dead. It spent its whole life under a custom water block. I'm very surprised. But yeah, I think that's all for today. It's been a long day of diagnosing this thing, so I'm definitely gonna do a part 2 follow-up where we get this system 100% back to its former glory. I wanna get a 5950X back in there. It's funny, I just went back through my things and I found the original receipt for this 5950X. I bought it like pretty much on launch, or as soon as I could get it, because they were sold out when it had first launched for a couple months. So May 2021, when I bought this CPU, I paid like $1,250 Canadian, and that wasn't like scalper price or marked up. That was the price that they were going for here in Canada. So yeah, if you do 800, I think was their MSRP USD, convert that to Canadian, add tax, $1,250. So very expensive CPU, very impressive CPU at the time too, but very expensive. You paid for it. And yeah, here we are not even 3 years later. It's definitely having some issues. So AMD has a 3-year warranty on their CPUs. I'm just gonna go ahead and RMA that, get subscribed. You'll see when we do part 2 after I get the RMA and everything else, get this thing built back up. So that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed this video and you stayed all the way to the end, make sure you hit that like button on the way out. It lets me know that you guys actually enjoy this type of content. Until next time, guys, take it easy, keep your cool when you're diagnosing things, go through things systematically, and it'll be all right. So I'll see you in the next one.